I'd like to call to order May 24th meeting of the Boyertown Area School Board. On tonight, our agenda, the agenda items we'll be discussing are there some issues on, we're going to talk about some recognitions tonight, which will be great to hear. Some things that we want to talk to some people and recognize some people for some very good things in the district. We'll have a student representative report. We're also going to talk about girls wrestling. There'll be some issues on the the superintendent's report. There'll be some itemized issues of the policy reading, and that's pretty much it. I think I know it's we're in budget session right now. Ms. Nicole, you have anything you're going to be discussing during the meeting on budget?
Not at tonight's meeting, but at the next board meeting, there will be a presentation on a budget update.
Okay, call to order and roll call.
Mrs. Hogan.
Present.
Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Mr. Panarello.
Here.
Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Zawada.
Here.
Mrs. Scott.
Here.
Ms. Deeroff.
Present.
Mr. Hemingway.
Here.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
All present.
To go for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll go to public comment period number 1. Oh. Previous executive session on personnel issues, informational. Now we go to public comment period number 1. I'll make the announcement, please. Okay, public comment period number 1. We have some people signed up, so let me go through this. On behalf of the School Board of Directors, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. We welcome your attendance and input from stakeholders to assist us with making recommendations and decisions related to the Boyertown Area School District. The procedures and rules for public participation are detailed in BSAD Board Policy 006. This document is available at this meeting on the BSAD website. Participants properly registered on a sign-up sheet will be recognized by the presiding officer. Public comment period number 1 is limited to topics on tonight's agenda. Participants must preface their comments with an announcement of their name, group affiliation if it is appropriate. All statements, inquiries, or comments shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually, administrative team members individually, school employees, or members of the public individually. Note that we value and will not compromise the privacy of our students and staff. Please see us outside the realm of a public meeting if you have a concern about an individual staff member or student. If your public comment includes a question, Mrs. Thorsha or a member of her staff will be in contact with you to confirm your question and provide you with information. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and comment periods are limited to 30 minutes. Individuals may indicate a desire to speak a second time if there is time left in a 30-minute period. Finally, note that we do record our board and committee meetings, and we post them on YouTube with a link to our website. Request that if you do wish to take pictures or record a meeting yourself, you do so in a non-disruptive and discreet manner, and use of this materials respectfully and responsibly. Also, Mrs. Storsher, we're also going to announce that we're adding a speaking,
Yeah.
public speaking, or also at the committee meetings.
Correct.
Okay, so there will be a second public comment period at all meetings now, not only the voting meetings, but also at the committee meetings. With that, I have the list for two speakers for,
Here's the third.
okay, there's three. Okay, the list for public speaking period number 1, Mr. John Emmy. The subject is proposed public comment policy changes.
Hi, just real brief on the public comment period. I understand the legal bind you guys are in with the recent court decision. I'm really concerned that causing people to have to register ahead of time is going to limit the amount of people that are going to be coming to speak, because it's just not something people are used to. Additionally, it's going to be difficult for people to actually react in the moment to things that might happen in the meeting. I've been coming to school board meetings for many years now. We've had several contentious issues here, including a very nationally prominent one a few years ago. If there was anybody that came in from out of Boyertown area to speak at one of our school board meetings, I can't remember them. I think it's probably going to be a very rare occurrence. So I propose that you find some way to make sure there can still be sign up at the meetings. And I also have a simple suggestion. Back in the fall, when we were having debates over masks and all the schools were having masks, just about every district in this school district in this area would extend their public comment periods as long as was necessary, so as many people as wanted to speak could speak their mind. Except Boyertown, that is. Boyertown seemed bound and determined to make sure that public comment period was over in 30 minutes. I propose that whenever you see a lot of people signed up for public comment, you let public comment last as long as you want. Therefore, you never have to worry about community members being shut out by people that might be coming in from outside a community. And finally, this is a pretty close-knit community. I bet you if someone here came from out of town, just about everybody in Boyertown sitting in the audience, watching on YouTube, and in the board would know that they're not from this area. So I propose that you make sure that we can have people still sign up to make it as open as possible, and make sure you get as much feedback as possible. And like I said, if you have to extend public comment period, don't be ashamed or don't be worried about extending it. Stay here as long as you want so you can get as much feedback as you can. Thank you.
Next speaker, Ms. U. Savage.
Donna Savage. I really don't know where to start tonight. I have so many concerns about the business of this board. I thought the board was bad when I decided to run in 2008, but you all take the cake. So where to start? Since I was told that the budgeting process is not a topic relevant to public comment period number 1, and I respectfully disagree, I'll focus first on policies. Here are some thoughts to consider. For policy OF5, organization, you are proposing to shorten the names of 2 standing committees to facilities and policy. You say this does not change the purpose of the committees, but you are removing the words education, human resources, technology, and parent-community intergovernmental relations. Does this mean that there will not be a working forum to allow for the board to learn and deliberate about personnel or technology-related decisions affecting the district? Even more important, does this mean there will not be a working forum to allow for the board to plan for its communication, collaboration, and advocacy with our parents, our community at large, and our legislators? I think you saw at last month's meeting the need to advocate via resolution regarding the negative impact of cyber charter school funding rules. And you really fumbled the discussion because board members were very unaware of the issue and the ways to advocate. My suggestion here, if you indeed are not changing the scope of the committee, then return to the good practice instituted around 2010, where each committee had a mission statement describing its scope. Policy 006, meetings. You are required to publicly post the meeting agendas 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Come on, you can do better than that. Why can't you post the agenda at the same time on Friday that you provided to the board? I assume that board leadership and administration still meet on Thursday night or Friday morning to finalize the draft agenda, right? And what is the motive for changing the policy regarding adding agenda items to a meeting for business arising within 24 hours or for business raised by residents and taxpayers? Policy 903, public participation. You are proposing to remove the entire section describing how the board can respond to public comment questions. Why is that? Do you not want to answer our questions? What is the motive for making that change? And finally, and most disturbingly, you are requiring that people sign up for public comment prior to the meeting. I understand that this is based on reducing the risk associated with a recent court ruling prohibiting you from asking a person's address in public. However, there are other ways, including the idea I emailed to the board, where you simply ask the people signing up to answer yes or no. Are you a district resident or taxpayer, a parent guardian of a district student, a
30
district
seconds.
student, or a district employee? Why would this not work? Thanks to the 2 board members who responded open-mindedly, as opposed to the 6 board members who didn't acknowledge the email, and the board president who outright dismissed the idea. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Nicole Zelks.
Nicole Zelks, good evening, everyone. I'm also going to speak on policy 309, 903. 903, that includes pre-registration to speak. Let's face it, even if something is a little restrictive, it is still restrictive. And at no time should this board be making policies that restricts anyone's right to speak. The last meeting, the board president said, the only way we can vet, this is the only way that we can vet. I want to know how you were vetting before. Are you saying that Joe Schmo couldn't write that he was from Boyertown, or couldn't stand up here and say he was from Boyertown? How is this going to vet? How is that vetting anybody? So why now do we have to pre-register? Also, as mentioned, ways to check. That when you send an email or call in, that it can be checked whether or not you're a resident. I have a few questions. What data or resources are we using, and how up to date is that data? Are you telling me that somebody maybe moved here 2 weeks ago, might not be on that data and told they can't speak because they aren't on the data that you're using? Are you not restricting their right to speak even though they are a community member? How long does a person have to live here before they have a right to speak? Is it days, weeks, months, years? I also want to address the fact that a lot of times, and this has happened to me personally and to other members of the community that I've seen this happen, when something is addressed during this meeting, maybe something I have a concern about or something I want to address, I have the right to do so at public comment too. By pre-registering, you're taking my right away to sign up prior to public comment number 2 so that I can address the issue at that moment rather than was a month from now, but luckily because you changed and added a second comment period, most likely 2 weeks from that time, I shouldn't have to. I would say that email is always an option when I want to address something with this board, but like most other people, you ignore my emails. This is the only way that I know that my voice is being heard. Thank you.
Put the backtrack for 1 second here. The executive session did not say how long it ran. It ran for 1 hour. Next, I'll be asking for approval of the meeting minutes for May 10th, 2022.
Hogan moved. Hogan seconds.
Okay, let me get that. Who first? Who moves? Ruth Deerhoff moves. Hogan seconds.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
I have a question first, because we didn't have questions on it.
sorry.
It's okay. I believe Mrs. Stapleton asked to have her comment period, or when she spoke at the public comment period as part of the minutes. Is that part of the minutes? I did not see that.
I do not know. Distortion is part of the minutes.
It would have been captured as part of the recording that our secretaries take the minutes from. So, what was your comment?
I believe we have to defer to Mr. Sultanic on that question. Mr. Sultanic, do you have can you weigh in on that since that wasn't official action?
Okay, if you could clarify, I had trouble hearing Mrs. Nyman in her explanation. I could hear you, but not her.
Okay, when Mrs. Stapleton talked at the public comment period last time we had the meeting, she asked for her comment to be part of the minutes of the meeting.
She doesn't have the right to determine what gets included in the minutes. Ultimately, the board decides by vote as to what gets included in the minutes. So it's the board's discretion as to what you elect to include in the minutes and what you do not elect to include in the minutes.
So, Mr. Solicitor, do I now have to go and go for a vote on whether to include that in the minutes so we can move on?
Technically, option one is for the board to vote on the minutes the way it is right now. And option two is if somebody's going to make a motion to amend the minutes to include that in there. So those are I think, the two ways to address the situation.
The minutes do reflect that Mrs. Stapleton did speak. It does not reflect exactly what she spoke on, but it does say that she did speak.
Okay, then do we have a motion to amend the minutes? And
Nyman moved.
So out of seconds.
take a vote on the amended minutes? If we're going to amend the minutes, correct?
No, you want to amend the minutes to do what?
Add Mrs. Stapleton's comments.
Verbatim? Because normally we do not do a verbatim. Would do a summary of what she said.
I would be happy with a summary of what she said.
Sure.
So whoever made the motion to amend and the second, do you agree that the motion to amend would be to outline a summary of what Ms. Stapleton said to be included in the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. So I have a concern about this only because I think that if we were to have a meeting where, you know, we had multiple speakers and they all said, oh, I want this added to the public record or the public minutes, sorry. That's a lot of summaries that someone has to then write, and that, you know, could be problematic. It costs us money, you know, employees, all that time. So I think, you know, we do have the video recordings where people can go back and see exactly what somebody said, and a summary is also not verbatim. So there could be some issues there. So I prefer to leave it the way it is for everyone. I think we'd have to, you know, we'd also could run into problems like accepting certain comments and then not accepting other ones. So I feel like there's a lot of gray here that could be problematic.
Clarification is being provided that her comments, Mrs. Stapleton's comments, will be filed with the minutes. So it's not verbatim in the minutes, but her statements will be filed with it. That is typically how
Okay,
the comments
thank
have
you.
been taken care of historically. I do not believe that this is a change. This is how we have always done it.
Yeah, that is how I remember doing it in the past, that if somebody put comments in, it was just filed with the
And then the
meeting
minutes are for reference. As I stated, Mrs. Stapleton is acknowledged in the minutes that she had spoken and that her comments would be filed with the minutes for the record.
Would they be filed that we can see them? I mean, like, she handed you like a typed copy or something that you could copy in?
I would have to confirm that. I would not want to misspeak and say that they are there or not, but let me check on that and I can get back to you. But I do know that, you know, we do make a file with regards to what is being said, whether or not it's the exact copy that's given or not.
Or maybe you can put down that she talked about the facilities, renting of the facilities. And that way at least you'd have something there that, okay, she talked about that, we can go back and look at what she said.
All right. we can certainly make sure that we do that.
So at this point, I think I'm just going for the motion to approve the minutes. There's no amending to the minutes at this point?
Well, with that change to it, because right now it doesn't say that she talked about anything other than that she talked. At least if we put down that she talked about facilities, we'd have an idea what it was.
So
That's not amending the minutes.
correct. So what would occur is if somebody came to us and said that they wanted to see the public comments that were made, we certainly would be able to provide it. It's just not in the minutes itself, but that statement is there. So it's right, it's physically there. So
Okay, thank you.
it's just not in part of the minutes. That's not how we transcribe the minutes, nor how they happen.
I just need a clarification. Wasn't there a motion and a second on the minutes
Yes.
being amended?
No.
I thought there was.
Yes, Jeff, in that case, Jeff Sawada did second it. I didn't hear him second it.
Okay, so there's currently a motion to amend to the minutes to incorporate a summary of what she said in the minutes as presented. That's what needs to be voted on right now.
But you have to go back and ask the people that. With that explanation, would you be willing to retract your second? No. Talking to Jeff. Talking to Jeff. With that further clarification of what it would be, would you be willing to take
If
that?
it was put in that she was discussing the facilities, yes, I would pull my second.
Chris, that sound fair?
Yes, I said that before. If that got changed, yes.
Okay, but we have to officially abandon the motion and the second. So Jeff, Mr. Sultanic, does that satisfy abandoning that first and that second? We can continue on?
No, I think the person who made the who made the motion?
The original motion or the second?
No, the amended motion.
Ms. Nyman?
Is she withdrawing that amendment?
Yes.
And whoever made the second, is Mr. Zawada withdrawing the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so based upon that, it's just the motion that was originally on the minutes as presented.
That's correct.
Okay, yes, you can move forward on that basis. That works.
Okay, thank you. So can we move forward on the vote for the accepting the approval of the meeting minutes?
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I believe I'm moving over to Mrs. Torsha for the recognition showcase.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Brophy. Senior spotlights, I know that we have some students in the audience this evening. So when you hear your name, it would be helpful to stand up so that we can acknowledge you. So tonight we are proud to feature 8 members of the class of 2022 in our final senior spotlight of the year. Can't believe that we're saying it's our final senior spotlight. Sarah, how are you feeling sitting there? All right. Well, congratulations goes out to Leo Egby, Kate Hovey, Laura O'Connor, Audrey Swartley, and Lauren Ziegler. Mr. Sparks had this to say to the 5 of you. On behalf of myself and Mr. Freeze, I'd like to personally thank the officers for the class of 2022 for all their hard work and dedication over the past 3 years. Despite the pandemic challenges, these students continued to advocate for their senior class and worked collaboratively to develop creative solutions and alternative activities. Their communication skills, professionalism, and work ethic are quintessential to the goals of the district and the hopes of any parent. I will truly miss working with them and wish them the best in their post-secondary adventures. Congratulations. 2 of the 5 are here representing us. Do you have any final words that you would like to share with your class? Nothing like me putting you on the spot.
Come on, Leo, say something, Leo. Just happy to be here, happy to be recognized for the work we did. You know, you don't always get to see it behind the scenes. I'm happy to kind of be here firsthand, see how that the magic happens. Thank you guys for having us. Thank you for recognizing us. I know the rest of our fellow officers wish they could be here, but they couldn't, so we're just representing them as well. I'm sure they should want to thank you as well. So that's all I have for you guys.
Well, thank you.
Again, thank you and best wishes moving forward.
Next, I'm proud to highlight Madison Waffle, who Mrs. Greener is recognizing. Mrs. Greener had this to say: Maddie has overcome the most challenging of personal obstacles. Her story is one of perseverance and resilience. She has always been keen to help others and be a voice for the underdog. She is an active member of ROTC and was recently awarded a substantial college scholarship, nearly fully funding her post-secondary studies. Congratulations to Maddie. Congratulations to Jake Ebert, who Mrs. Kraus nominated. She says Jake has shown incredible growth and tenacity in dual enrollment composition this year. I don't know if he knew exactly what he was getting into when he signed up, but he has been a model picture of improvement from the beginning of the year. With every assignment, he responded to feedback from me and his peers with genuine concern, which was then reflected in subsequent submissions. He is now a writer with thought for confidence who has the tools to attack future college writing assignments with panache. And last but not least, I'm proud to recognize Nicholas Herlock. Mrs. Ronzon had this to say about her nominee. I teach Spanish 3 here at Bash. I don't have many seniors in my classes, so it's special when I have a senior. Nick always comes to class ready to learn and always tries his best at whatever we are doing. He is such a positive part of our classroom environment and will be missed. Best of luck to him in his future endeavors. So finally, congratulations to all of you on a job well done. Please soak up every moment of your final days here at Boyertown, and best wishes for the future. Good luck, guys. All right. I'm going to give you something, Mr. Brophy, because you can make the presentation, and once I'm done here. But next, we are going to acknowledge Boyertown Area School District Coach Joe Mcglinchey. Want to have a stand up, please? All right. So here we go. Tonight, I have the honor of sending off a team member who has selfishly dedicated himself to the young people of our district for 47 years. On Friday, May 6th, Nick Palladino, our athletic director, received the following email. This email is being sent as an official notification of my intention to retire from coaching at the end of this current track season. I have coached spring track for 47 years. And I previously coached girls winter track for 37 years. During this time, I have coached many outstanding athletes and quality students. I have also had the opportunity to meet and befriend many supportive parents. My life and career have truly been made richer and more rewarding because of these student athletes and their parents. I know I will miss coaching very much. I will miss my coaching colleagues and the opportunity to impact, if even in a small way, the lives of so many fine young people. Respectfully submitted, Joe Mcglinchey. Joe, you have had a huge impact on the lives of Boyertown Area School District students and student athletes for decades. And your legacy will live on for decades to come. Ross Smith, athletics leaders, scoured yearbooks looking for details of your career, and this is what he had to say. Mr. Mcglinchey has the unique knack of getting the most out of his athletes. In fact, if you read the capsules of each season, you will inevitably read a quote that summarizes the student athlete's experience this way. Glinch got more out of me than I thought I had. The true definition of a coach is not only making the athlete realize their potential, but getting them to exceed their potential. Track isn't like other sports where there is a solid win or loss record. It's an individual sport where your wins or losses are recorded by improvement every meet. He has brought together his teams and made them feel like a family. He has guided many young men and women to districts and states. And at the end of the day, as a guidance counselor and a coach, he has helped many young people realize their potential and help not only make them better athletes, but better people. So thank you, Coach Mcglinchey, for giving your time to the youth of Boyertown and the Boyertown community. We wish you all the best. Congratulations. We have a small token of appreciation for you. Do you have a few words? Oh, please, come right up to the mic.
Okay. Yeah, 47 years is a long time. I've coached over 5 decades. I've truly been blessed. We had a little get-together today for the winter and spring track squads. I only cried twice. I'm going to miss all the connections I made with so many countless athletes and their parents and coaches along the way. When I said in my resignation notice to Nick that I have truly been blessed by the connections I've made, I absolutely mean that. My career, I'm not doing this for 47 years without getting something back. And I've gotten an awful lot back, from my athletes. I've coached 4 state champions, but I've coached multiple state medalists. More importantly, I've coached some really fine young men and young women. Now, I'm known for my quotes, so I'll leave you with 3. And I have to recognize my wife, who is here tonight with me. She's been a great coach's wife. A lot of cold meals or no meals. And a lot of, I think he threw his gym bag up to the top of the steps. Must not have been a very good practice tonight. 3 Mcglincheisms. Nothing works like work. Excellence is not an accident. Sports don't develop character. They reveal it. And I'd like to think that I showed the athletes that I've been able to coach over the last several years a character coach. Sometimes I've been a character, but I also tried to embody character. And I'm so proud of the guys and girls that I've coached, and it's been a blessing to be a member of the Boyertown community. So if you see a skinny gray-haired guy running through the streets of Boyertown, blow your horn, that'll be me.
Thank you, Coach. It surely is our honor. So thank you again for your long tenure and the lives that you helped to change and mold and just be everything too. That means more than anything to many young and older people who are out there, because I'm sure they're a little bit older than 18 these days. So thank you for your tenure. All right, next up, I would like to introduce and honor Mr. Stephen oh my goodness, I know I'm going to stumble on this one. Prisborowski? Thank you. Gilbertsville Giant Food Store Manager. We have been blessed with receiving checks, from the Giant Food Store, and it's our turn now to, announce and acknowledge you publicly for all that you've done. Over the past 3 years, the Giant Food Store has been very generous to the Boyertown Area School District. My administrative assistant probably had you on speed dial, and whenever we were down and in need of hand sanitizer or hand soap or any other type of PPE, you were right there, ready to send us even more things. I know that alcohol wipes were a huge one during the COVID vaccines. They helped out tremendously. You've been there for us, during these past 3 years. And on top of it, you've also managed to include the Boyertown Area School District as part of the Feeding School Kids program, and you've made monetary donations to the district. In June of 2020, we received a $1,300 check. May 2021, $14,000 check. And in March of 2022, an additional $8,300 check from, just encouraging people within our community to round up and to help support feeding our students in Boyertown. So tonight, we would just like to honor you with an acknowledge, and sorry, I could have saved your trip.
No, that's okay.
And just, let you know that we appreciate you and the Giant Food Store, and we thank you for all that you do for us and our children. So thank you, Mr. Pizbowski.
Yeah, Sandy's great. I could just say that, Sandy Graham. She is great. Love her to death. And really, I didn't really come for the recognition of Giant. I appreciate representing Giant. But really, just to reiterate that if you need anything, you have to reach out. I tell Sandy all the time, and that's why she does call me. She called me for masks. We helped out with the
Over 10,000 masks that you supplied the Boyertown Area School District.
We helped out, did a volunteer event last week with the Challenger event in Boyertown, right down the street, the church, and that was great event. We love helping out. I've been in retail 40 years. It's hard to act to follow with Joe here. 40 years, and I've never been with a company that pays our team members to volunteer to the community. So I've been with a couple companies, and they all want you to do it on your own time, but Giant pays team members to help out. So we have kids on the concession stands and working 3 hours, 3, 4 on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, right? And they love to do it. The kids are involved. We love doing it as managers because we get to go and talk about Giant. So Joe needs a job. So really, it's really to let you know that we're here for you. You guys are a great partner, and that's the way we want to keep it. So thank you for this.
Well, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, next we're going to have our student representative report, but we're going to have a little senior spotlight here for Sarah. So tonight is our last Board of School Directors meeting with Sarah Drakis. She's our outgoing senior student school board rep. Sarah is a member of NHS, Student Council, Link Crew, and Youth in Government. She is also part of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, Students of the Year Program, and Junior Advisory Committee. Outside of school, Sarah is a team leader at Chick-fil-A. She was also recently recognized as Boyertown Senior of the Year. After graduation, Sarah will be attending Penn State University and majoring in marketing. Dr. Foley and the Bash admin team would like to thank Sarah for her time and work. She has served as the student's voice to the school board of directors. Dr. Foley and the Bash admin team all have been impressed with Sarah's leadership in providing an opportunity to facilitate change in the high school and recognize the student body's potential. Sarah has asked us to mention that she has enjoyed representing the student body and wishes Olivia and Lexi all the best as they take their new positions. We wish to thank Sarah for her hard work, passion, dedication, and professionalism throughout her 2-year tenure as student board representative. Enjoy the coming days and best wishes for what we know will be nothing short of a spectacular future. So I have a little send-off presentation for you. Well, thank you. No good PSU student does not have something for a whiteout.
Should I open it now, or do you want me to wait?
Certainly you may open it now. I'm sure everyone will.
Thank you for this card too. I don't know who brought it, but I saw it on the chair, so thank you. Oh, boy.
Another one. You would like to acknowledge it?
Thank you. This is perfect.
It might be a little bit big, but I know that you may have to layer, especially for those whiteout nights. So,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
yep. And Mr. Brophy has something else to present.
You have to get one of these in recognition of everything you've done and all the great work you've done. You're a citizen in the school.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Best of wishes.
Thank you. Thank you all. I really appreciate it.
And before Sarah starts with her board report, I just would also like to proudly introduce Lexi Pacino. Is she here?
She is right out there if she wants to hop in.
Lexi, come on in here so that we can introduce you. This will be our up and coming board representative. She is our new incoming junior student school board rep. Lexi is very active in the Bash Orchestra and select music ensemble. She also is involved in the drama program. Outside of school, Lexi is a server dishwasher at Chestnut Knoll, and she says that she is looking forward to representing the student body and improving communication between the school board and the students. Welcome aboard, Lexi. We look forward to working with you next year. Now I'm going to hand it over to you, Sarah.
Good evening, board and community members. Olivia will not be present at this meeting as she had a family emergency come up last minute, but she wanted me to pass along her well wishes as this is our final report of the year. First, I would like to begin by thanking the board and community for my time in this position. Over the last 2 years, I have learned the amount of effort it truly takes to make effective decisions for the entire district and the importance of collaboration. This opportunity taught me so much, and thank you for allowing me to expand the student board representative position to what it is today. Mrs. Torsha, thank you for being a role model, always advocating for student interests and helping with my Students of the Year endeavors. And Mrs. Hogan, thank you for being such a welcoming individual and all the positive encouragement you have given me throughout the past 2 years. I wish everyone the best of luck, encourage you to continue making Boyertown an inclusive, blossoming community. Moving on, PSSA testing, Keystones, and AP tests took place during the month of May in the high school. With these tests wrapping up, students are very excited to be nearing the end of the school year. In addition, prom was a great success for all those in attendance. The senior class office did an outstanding job sticking to their theme of Old Hollywood. To add, on behalf of the senior class, I would like to thank Mr. Freeze and the Bash staff for organizing our senior day trip to Hershey. Although weather was not on our side, it was a very fun day for the class to spend together. Finally, I would like to introduce our upcoming new junior board representative, Lexi Pacino. She will be our junior board representative at the start of the new year, and I'm very excited for her to enter the position. Lexi and Olivia plan to continue their work with the student leader luncheons by partnering with the student council. With that, if the board has any topics that would like to be discussed with the student body in these luncheons, please let Olivia and Lexi know, and they can plan accordingly and do that ahead of time over the summer. Finally, I would like to thank you all once again for this wonderful school year, this amazing opportunity. I appreciate working with all of you and observing just all the decisions you make for Boyertown and how much you advocate for the students. I hope you all have a relaxing summer and have a great night.
All right, next we have the girls wrestling presentation. Mr. Palladino.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here tonight to talk about girls wrestling. Right now, girls wrestling is what we call an emerging sport in the PIAA. With an emerging sport, it just means that there are under 100 teams right now that have it as a varsity competition. Once we hit 100, the PIAA will then make it a full competition team and a championships. So just like football, soccer, basketball, they all have their championships. Girls wrestling would then get their own championship also. Right now, where we currently stand in the state, there are 38 teams in the state for girls wrestling, and there are 5 in Berks County. Our goal is to add Boyertown to that list to get us to that 100 goal for the PIAA. Right now, it's also the fastest growing sport nationally. Okay. Up on the list, you'll see I do have right there are the 38 teams that are currently in the state. I highlighted some of the local teams. Those teams are within an hour's distance for us. And there are also some other teams in District 1 that are exploring the same options, like William Tennant, Penridge, Central Bucks, Pennsbury, Pottstown, and Wissahickon. If we go by the numbers of girls wrestling right now, there's over 1,000 girls nationally that are wrestling. Why girls wrestling? There's great opportunity in girls wrestling. Like we said, it's the fastest growing sport. It's also the fastest growing collegiate sport. So right now there are many opportunities for girls who wrestle to move on to the next level to help out with their college education. Lock Haven, Alvernia, Ursina, Cedar Crest, East Stroudsburg, Gannon, Lackawanna, Del Val. They just all established girls wrestling or women's wrestling programs in the past 2 years. The scholarship opportunities are phenomenal for them right now. There's over 115 collegiate programs nationally. And the past year, the NCAA granted an emerging sports status to women's wrestling at all 3 levels, Division I, II, and III. And they're working towards hosting their individual women's championship. Wrestling caters to girls of any type of athletic ability. All they have to be willing to do is to work hard. It develops self-improvement and work ethic. It helps girls develop self-esteem and confidence. And some of the best athletes ever to come out of Boyertown were wrestlers. When college coaches for any sport come in to see me, the first thing they ask me is, does that kid wrestle? That's one of their biggest things they want to know. How will a new team work? We'll be looking to add coaches, a head coach and an assistant coach right from the beginning. This will help with our Title IX compliance, but also it will give the girls wrestling team their own identity, that we're not sharing anybody, we're not sharing the boys coaches. We're here to build this program to make it something big, to make it turn into the Boyertown wrestling program that we currently have. Practices, we're looking for them to take place at Bash. We have the wrestling room at Bash. They'll run independently from the boys program. Now, right now, when the PIAA has us in what we call the emerging sports status right now, girls can be double rostered, which means they can wrestle on the boys team because they have a full schedule, and they can also wrestle in individual tournaments that are girl-only tournaments. So they can do both. Many of the currently sanctioned programs, like we said before, within 1 to 2 hours of Boyertown, making the travel effective, cost-effective and convenient. Right now there's more than 15 girl-only tournaments that are established in the state. Parkland, Easton, Governor Mifflin are all within an hour. So there's a lot of opportunity for our girls, not only to, if they choose to wrestle with the boys, but they can also wrestle in their own program just with the girls. Big question was, will girls come out for the team? Research dictates that girls will wrestle once they know they're going to wrestle other girls. Some girls don't mind being in the room with all the guys and going through that. Other girls, they're intimidated by it, and I totally understand that. So we need to make it where they know they can wrestle the girls. We did an interest survey through grades 6 through 11. 41 girls expressed interest, either said they would wrestle or they would look at that possibility of wrestling. Wrestling is a very inclusive sport that's open to individuals of all sizes and abilities. Like I said before, all you have to be willing to do is work hard. In summary, when it's applicable, we'll schedule the girls' contest with the boys' events to minimize event fees, transportation, and it'll be a great way just to promote the sport. Where if we go start out with, say, the boys JV matches, and then do the girls varsity matches, and then the boys varsity matches, and flip-flop them back and forth. That way they're in front of a crowd. We gain awareness. Other people can actually see what it is. A lot of people don't, they've never seen girls wrestling before. So this is our way of getting it out there and promoting it. We'll be purchasing the appropriate singlets that are needed. And teams do not have to have a full roster to compete, where we do not need to have 20 people on the roster. If we only have 5, that's great. We can go, we can have individual matches, we can go to tournaments, we can be involved, we can start the program. Girls wrestling also supports our district's efforts in meeting Title IX compliance. With Title IX compliance, it just goes by the number, it's not number of sports, it's number of individuals who are participating in those sports. In 2020, 2021, we had 406 males and 326 females. So we are a difference of about 80. So if we can build a girls wrestling program, which is exclusive only to females, this will help us level out that playing field and bring us back up to Title IX compliance. Does anyone have any questions? I also have Coach Haley's here. He's our head wrestling coach. So if you had any type of like technical questions, things like that, you know, he'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Not technical, but how many are in a full roster?
There are 13 weight classes. Girls may be slightly different, but as of right now, PIAA is 13 weight classes as well as the National Federation.
And what are the 5 Berks County schools that are in the, I only see some.
Exeter, Governor Mifflin, Brandywine Heights, and why am I missing?
And Berks Catholic.
Berks Catholic.
So we're not in compliance, you're saying right now?
In Title IX compliance? Right now, we are. They want to see us try to level out that playing field.
Are we in compliance
We're
right
upside
now?
down.
We're upside down.
So we need 80, you're saying?
For the numbers that were, the last full set of numbers that we disclosed were 2020, 2021, and we were 80 upside down.
And you expect to get that many kids?
No, but we would need to make it, as long as you get within usually 1 or 2% of that, they know we're making the effort to do so.
When you said about traveling to, there's other sports I've been seeing in the paper where you hardly play anybody in Berks anymore. So are you saying with the wrestling you would?
We would, because right now Berks County has more of the teams with girls wrestling. It's not really that big in District 1 yet, which is, we're the westernmost team in District 1, but that's our home district. So most of the teams we play are in District 1. But with girls wrestling, since the Pioneer Athletic Conference does not have it as a scheduled sport yet, we're pretty much like an independent. We can go out and wrestle whoever we want.
With the boys?
With the girls.
No, what if, you said you'd be playing the boys and the girls at the same time?
You have the opportunity.
We have the opportunity to do so.
But you wouldn't be doing that then, because you'd be in 2 different leagues or 2 different.
No, we can bring in whoever we want for the girls program. So if we're wrestling, say O&J at home that night, we can bring in Berks Catholic for the girls team.
Okay, so that wouldn't matter then?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. They don't have to equal up.
Okay, so eventually might that change?
It very well could, yep. If we get enough teams in the league will make a league schedule.
And there are packed teams right now besides just Pottstown. I believe O&J is on the cusp of adding a girls program as well. There's a lot of movement in District 1 across the state as well.
What do you anticipate the cost to get this program started?
Most of the things we currently have included in our budget.
Well, you don't have coaches, you don't have the equipment you need for girls. Do you have any idea what it's gonna cost to get it up and running? And the fees for the different schools that we pay?
We wouldn't have to pay any like District 1 or league fees because we already have that in our budget. It doesn't matter how many sports, if we have 50 sports, we pay our set league fee every year, and it stays what it is. Coaches, we're looking at for a head coach roughly $4,700, and assistant coach a little over $4,000. That would match the current CBA for next year.
I believe Ms. Hogan has a question.
Yeah, I actually, the presentation was really well done. Thank you. You answered all my questions within it. I kept thinking, oh, I have to ask this, but then you answered it. I just wanted to say that I think this is really exciting, and I love seeing opportunities for girls. New opportunities. And I think it's really great starting in middle school and building the program, and kind of, like you had said, there's a lot of collegiate money in this, so it's really giving girls a great opportunity more than just wrestling. So thank you, I appreciate it.
We have Sammy. Sammy wrestled for us throughout the high school. She wrestled as a ninth grade, all through junior high and high school. She had the pleasure of competing with the males throughout it. She still comes into our room Tuesdays and Thursdays when we have open mats. We are very proud that she attends Lock Haven University right now with the girls program up there as well.
How many girls do we
This year, we did not have any on the roster. No, Sammy was probably the last one. That was about 2 years.
And how many that year when she was wrestling?
Her freshman year, I believe there were 3 or 4.
Yeah, there were 3 of us freshmen.
There were 3 of them. By the time she was the one who stayed with us as a sophomore, you must understand that our program is very competitive. Anybody who comes through our program, we have numerous kids right now wrestling Division I, Division II, and Division III in college. Again, I think a lot of it is when the girls see the fact that they have to work out day in and day out with boys and go through some of the scheduling that we go through, it kind of steers them away from it. And I think that was one of his statistics that he pointed out, was that there's several, probably up to 20 girls that are very interested, just not quite with boys.
How did you like that experience?
I wrestled guys from when I was like in 1st grade. So I mean, it wasn't much different for me wrestling with the guys, but now that I've gotten to experience being on a girls team, I can definitely see how it would help to grow the sport in like younger girls' minds, because it is a lot more comforting just being around more girls and feeling a lot more level with your competition instead of kind of like outmatched on the mat already. So yeah.
And if there's one last thing I can add, I am a coach here, I am a taxpayer here. Both my daughters went through school here. Both of my daughters would have probably considered wrestling, but as a dad at the time, sorry Sammy, my wife said there's no way they're getting on the mats with those boys. And as I said before, one of the things I'd like to see from Boyertown is instead of following everybody else's lead, obviously you see there are 5 teams already in Berks County, as well as probably going to be another 5 or 6 in District 1. We have the opportunity to be one of the first teams in the pack to make that commitment and to show people that we are taking the lead in something like that.
Must we get any kind of special insurance? How do we protect these kids?
It's just covered under our usual student action insurance, which we have for athletics.
Football, that we have to get special insurance?
No. Nope.
No. Did you get hurt a lot?
No, actually I didn't.
Did you beat any of the boys?
A few times.
Sammy was tough. She'd always show up and have a shiner on her eye, and
They had a state tournament the last several years, I believe, starting when you were a freshman or a sophomore. They had a state tournament. It wasn't sanctioned by the state until you get 100 schools. I believe, as he said earlier, we were up around 50. Every year we would take her, either myself, Coach Ventresca, Coach Jones, whatever, we would make sure that she gets to the state tournament, and I believe it was 2 years that you had placed at the state tournament. I'm sorry.
I placed all 3.
All 3, okay. I knew I was going to probably be over. Okay.
Way to practice.
How fast is this gonna happen? I mean, basically you need coaches, you need kids, right? Off and run.
Yep. Yeah, our goal would be to have it for this coming school year.
You have.
I'm sorry. Do you guys have summer camps to start recruiting? Incorporate that into? I guess it'd be tough to have all girls summer camp. They would.
Well, we would not. One of the things that we have Coach Stantina here with us. Coach Stantina's daughter, I believe, is in 5th grade. Okay. We also have the Bawa president, Mr. Heimbach, with us, Josh Heimbach, with us. If this becomes something that we can do, we have already been in discussion about running open mats. We have a room that we run a lot of open mats through. We would definitely get together. If this is a push, we would talk to Mr. Palladino, and we would definitely begin to open the room and say, hey, Wednesday night, girls who are interested, 7 through 12, Art Bawa supports it, sponsors it. We have insurance through all of that, waiver forms and so forth.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for answering all my questions.
So what we will do moving forward is at our next board meeting, we will be putting this on for adoption. I wanted to be able to give a right amount of time for questions, any other questions that might come up between now and our June 14th, but it will be on the agenda for approval at that time then. Thank you.
Thank
Yep, thank you, Mr. Palladino and coaches. All right, that completes my part. I believe I can hand it over to you, Mr. Brophy.
Report of the president, there's nothing to report at this time. So we now go to the secretary's report, or finance report, excuse me.
The treasurer could not be with us unfortunately tonight, but she did prepare a report that I'd like to present. For the month of April, delinquent tax collection was approximately $211,000. Earned income tax collection was approximately $1,280,000, and transfer tax was approximately $197,000. For the month of April, we received basic education subsidy of $2,300,000, and we received federal grant revenue of $80,000. Our largest expenditures in April were salaries, benefits, and professional services. They account for 70% of the expenditures in April, and they totaled $7,300,203. And that concludes the treasurer's report.
Okay, looking for a solicitor's report?
A vote.
Excuse me.
A vote.
The solicitor has no report.
I'm ahead of you a second. I go to the second. That's right. Go to treasurer's report, sorry. Nyman moves. Wait a second.
I'll second.
Mrs. Hogan.
Yes.
Ms. Nyman.
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove.
Yes.
Mr. Zawada.
Yes.
Mrs. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Diroff.
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now I go to the secretary's report.
No report this evening.
Okay. Now to the solicitor's report.
There still is no solicitor's report.
I thought you might change your mind if I gave you a minute or two, so.
I could, but you don't want me to.
Okay, I'll go with that. No report.
I do have a report tonight, Mr. Brophy, as usual. On the superintendent's report under the consent agenda, I will be looking for the board to approve the consent agenda for the settlement agreement for student number 240060, the 2022-23 Berks Career and Technology Center Child Nutrition Program Agreement, the 2022-2023 Sports Student Accident Insurance, the audit entry adjustment, entry authorization, and the first reading of policies 005, 008, 218, 220, 227, and 237. So I am looking for the Board of School Directors to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Wait, 006 is on the itemized agenda.
Yeah. I'll let the question come forward.
The question I have is, one, if we bid it, and two, has anybody looked into it if we put a deductible in there to reduce the price, reduce the cost? Say $250 per occurrence or something like that.
We have not taken this out to bid. The carrier that we are with is one of the most respected carriers in the state. A lot of school districts work with them. We have not looked to increase the deductible on what we would pay. This insurance policy also offers the ability for parents to purchase 24-hour coverage at a much discounted rate. So it provides additional protections that if a parent would like to purchase it, they could as well.
Does that answer your questions? Okay. Just a call for vote. Motion.
To approve the
Motion.
consent agenda.
Hogan motions.
Brophy seconds.
Jim, can you clarify the first and the second again, please?
Hogan,
Hogan,
and then
Brophy.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next up, we have, under the superintendent's report, looking for a motion for the school board of directors to approve the following policy, 006, for first reading and move it forward to the June 14th committee of the whole meeting for second reading and approval.
Do we have this open for discussion first? So open for discussion? No questions? Okay.
I am still not liking the things I'm seeing. There's got to be some way that we can have people come in and talk without having to go, oh, that's outside, without having to sign up ahead of time. I mean, that's just limiting the residents who elect us into this office. And they have every right to come here and vet. Second reading, sometimes, second comment period rather, sometimes something's happened that night and somebody may have made a comment or something happened. They have a right to go back and sign up. I would think that somehow or other we could put a sign-up sheet out there stating that I am a resident of the Boyertown School District, and somehow legally, if we find out they're not a resident of the Boyertown School District, we should be able to bar them from coming to the meeting. And by signing this, I sign Christine Nyman, I'm a resident. If it's determined I'm not a resident of this school, then put me out, boot me out. But there's got to be some way that these residents can still come out and sign up at the last minute. I'm sorry.
Mr. Sultanic, is there any enforcement mechanism we would have along those lines?
There once, I'm not sure how that would work in practice. If somebody comes in and says they are a resident and they falsely represent that, and we would not necessarily know whether it was true or false under the circumstances because they would not reveal their address. I don't know how you stop it after they make their comment, other than barring them from future meetings once we get that information. I'm presuming that is what Ms. Nyman was suggesting, but once a statement is made, the statement is made.
So how would we be fulfilling our duty to assure that only the residents have the ability to speak at our meetings if we follow that?
I'm going to have to correct you somewhat. There isn't necessarily an established duty on the part of the school board to assert who makes comments are residents. That isn't necessarily a duty of the board. Certainly the board is only accountable to its residents, and certainly only its residents are technically allowed to speak. And certainly the board should only be listening to its residents in terms of operations and decision-making. But unfortunately, the Pennsbury decision has left boards with limited methodologies to assure that people coming to the meeting are truly residents, which is why the policy was framed in the way it was. But we don't have an absolute duty to assure that people who come up are residents, but certainly in order for a board to know whether somebody is articulating a view as a resident, you wouldn't know that if you did not have that restriction.
Okay, other comments, please?
If we were to put some kind of disclosure affidavit where they would have to sign, and if we found out later, couldn't we not strike those comments from our meetings minutes? And basically, it was mentioned earlier, most of the people know each other in this area, and I think we would know somebody that came in that would be a radical, and we would shut them down. I know it's a tough decision because of what's been the legality that's been sent down, but at the same time, it just doesn't make sense. So that's why I'm trying to protect the school district as well as, the board.
Mr. Hemingway.
I was going to say, I believe Mr. Sultanic said that the board will always have discretion to allow others to speak. So the comments that I've heard tonight, yes, there's going to be residents that we know are residents, that are regulars, that we're comfortable, who've already been vetted, if you will, to come and speak. And that's a fair risk that we would be willing to take. That, yeah, we pretty much know that Miss Hugh Savage is a resident, and I shouldn't say your name, I apologize, but you know what I mean. It's fair for the board. I don't want you to assume that just because it says you have to sign up, you're not going to have that ability to speak that night. Am I mistaken? Or, I mean, we have that discretion.
Well, the
to
way
take
that the
on that
policy is
liability.
written now, it's asking that people be signed up in advance. I think that, and I don't mean to be speaking out of line, but, hearing the public and the concerns of board members, I think that we could add something to it that, many of our policies have that, with 2/3 board vote, that you could allow for something. Do you want to add something like that gives the opportunity for someone to be able to speak, or do you want to say something even simpler and say at the discretion?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have serious concerns about that, only because if it could be exclusionary for the wrong purpose, like if the board just didn't want to hear from a certain person, and that could end us up in court. So I don't feel comfortable with that.
That goes to my question, Mr. Sultanic. That would be, in my mind, unequal enforcement of a policy. Am I correct on that, or am I stretching?
If you have a discretionary policy and you decide to let some people come in and some people not to come in, you run the risk of discretionary enforcement of the policy. How do you make the determination of where you have a reasonable doubt whether somebody's a resident or not? I don't know how that would be done.
I mean, right now our practice is that, and we've been advertising for people to sign up in advance, and for the most part, everyone does. And on occurrences as this evening, we did have someone, from the public come and sign up. So, again, I guess it comes down to what the board as a whole sees as being an obstacle moving forward. Typically, we do get most of our people to register in advance, and they do give a call. Everyone, with exception of one this evening, did call in. So that is our experience. So by that, what I'm saying is it's not often that you have many that are signing up on the spot.
It's not so much as what's happening, it's more of what policy and what's going to be followed. That's more the question than the individuals or the instances. So is there a policy or is there not a policy is my question. Mrs. Scott?
Mrs. Torsia, when you were referring to the 24-hour notice, was that the sunshine law that you were referring that to, that they give that as a, it's not necessarily that you have to do it, but they're recommending a 24-hour notice. That's what I'm reading here. So it's still up to our discretion whether we want that 24-hour notice or whether we don't. And then Mr. Sultanic said something about, there's no absolute duty according to the Penn Ridge decision that we have to have everyone sign up ahead of time. So my feeling is that I don't think we have a problem with outside people coming in. I think we can address that if we start to see that happening. But right now, with respect to our residents and the ones that can't always get to the agenda that quickly, that I think keeping it the way that we have it, and to include the public participation and all those things listed under there in red that were all crossed out. I don't understand why that's all crossed out. I don't see why that's not included in that as well. So that's my thoughts on it.
The reason it's crossed out is because it's verbatim, and it's really all information that's in policy 903, and it references in green prior to the cross out under the public participation that's found in 903. That policy.
Okay, but we've had it in both for a while, and this is the board, the organization of the board meeting. So is it safer to keep it in here, or is it going to pose a problem in the future if someone questions how we run our meetings and it's not part of this policy?
I rely on recommendation from legal and from Mr. Sultanic's office, who I work directly with. This was their recommendation based upon this policy, 006. And referencing 903 opposed to having everything in there.
Mrs. Scott, can I move?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So I oppose this policy change. Historically, we haven't had an issue in Boyertown with outsiders coming in to speak. And we've had some hotly debated even issues that drew national attention. The possibility of restricting a resident, because the vetting mechanism has not been explained, at least to me. I don't know about anyone else, but so that is the possibility of restricting a resident is one of my concerns. I think that this also disallows people from commenting on what they hear within the meeting. To me, this is a risk versus benefit. I don't see a large amount of risk in continuing the way we have as far as signups. But I do see a lot of benefit to the community in allowing them, as much access to be heard as possible. So I am against the restrictions to the sign up.
Ms. Nyman?
Okay, just thinking now, you make a statement at the beginning about videotaping and all that. Couldn't we do part of that as saying that you must be a resident? If we find out you're not a resident, your statement will be stricken from our minutes. I don't know if that's legal, but I'm voicing it out here for Mr. Sultanic. And still have a sign-up sheet in the back, like we do now, but stating, by signing this, I am saying I am a resident of the Boyertown Area School District. Signing it, if we find out they're not, we don't allow them back. There's got to be a way that our people can come out and talk to us. The residents. Yeah, whether they be Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, there are residents, and they have a right to come here and vet their concerns, whether we agree or disagree. I mean, that's the only way they're going to tell us there's a problem somewhere in here.
Mr. Zawada?
Thank you, Mr. Brophy. Real quick, this is for Mr. Sultanic. If we were to leave it the way it is, are we leaving ourselves open for any lawsuits?
If we leave it the way it is, are you saying are we leaving? Are we opening the door for lawsuits?
Yes, are we if we leave it the way we
We-
are we in compliance, or do we leave ourselves open?
We would not have recommended the language if we felt that it was illegal. We believe we have the perfect right to impose that as a requirement. But I suppose any person can sue about anything. I'm just saying whether it's merited or not, but any lawsuit with respect to that, we believe would not pass legal muster.
Thank you.
Just for me to clarify, 006 in itself is not stating that you must sign up in advance of the meeting. It references 903. So 903 is really the policy that you want, that you're really having discussion about with regard to whether or not we're going to require people to sign up 4 hours in advance of a meeting. Policy 006 is really about the meeting, meetings, period. And again, there's nothing in there specific other than referencing 903. So 903 is really the part that we need to change with regard to, or that's really under discussion, whether or not you want to allow people to sign up when they're here or to have to sign up in advance. And we did alter, or we did take the comment back that we wouldn't make anyone sign up 24 hours in advance, that it would be 4 hours prior to. But either way, I just wanted to make everyone understand that 006, really the way that legal is promoting that policy, it really more hinges on the fact that it references 903 as far as the meeting organization and how you would need to sign up in advance to be able to speak. So you would just want to be noting that you want to change 903 more than you want to change 006, okay? I just wanted to bring everyone back around there.
There can't be no change, because in the policy right now, I have to read, that I'm supposed to be reading is you have to name your name and address. I've been purposely skipping the and address part at this point, although it's still in the policy. So there is changes one way or the other. Either we're going to go by the Pennsburg decision and not ask, and then basically not vet anyone coming in, because essentially we will not be. Or we put in the requirement that you have to call in so that the records can be checked. And when you ask about how we're vetting, when you call in with your name and address, you are checked through the administration. They can't say it here. When they call in, they give a name and address. That's how the vetting takes place. So there is still a call. When they call in, they still have to give name and address and their topic. So the only thing we can't do is we can't ask them to publicly announce their address here. That's the difference, and I don't know if that's what's being missed.
Yes, you're correct. And the other part of 006 is that it is incorporating all of the new rules from the Sunshine Law. So that is the addition in the green. With regard to the red, again, just referencing 903. So I just wanted to keep us there.
So our options are, we have to change it to not ask for addresses here, no matter what we do. That has to be changed. So what we're saying, the two things I see on the table are, we'll change to follow Pennsburg direction before we're forced to do it, and not ask for address, and then it's open season. Anybody wants to come in can speak, and there's nothing we can do about it. Or we change it, and then we request, which other districts have done, we're not the only ones, we didn't come up with this on our own. They ask for pre-registration before they come in. There are two options. I think that's, we can, before we continue on with this for hours, that's pretty much the two things we have to talk about. There's really no other option.
So,
Mrs. Hogan.
thank you, Mr. Murphy. I did want to clarify this, because I believe I heard Mr. Sultanic say this earlier, that if someone came in and certified that they lived within the district and then spoke, and we found out that they did not, we could bar them from future meetings, which would which would create, because I know that there was a gentleman who was roaming from school board meeting to school board meeting making comments. So it would be a one-time thing. They'd come in, we'd bar them, they couldn't speak again. So there is that. I mean, it's,
I would say that, to me, that doesn't pass the so what test. So what? They've made the comments, they've done more meeting, and now we bar them. So what?
what damage is done by someone speaking words? What damage is done? I don't think, no, I think the way you decide to perceive words is harmful. So that's on you, not the speaker. I don't, this is infringing on,
I feel threatened,
well, if someone threatens you, that's different, but someone who lives, someone who resides within the district isn't allowed to come to the podium and threaten you either. So that wouldn't matter if they lived here or if they lived outside
I
the
agree, but
district.
it's all relative, so don't tell me how to react to somebody's statements.
I'm not telling you how to react to it. I'm saying your reaction is what makes the words impactful. That it's a personal thing.
I would tend to disagree with that. Mrs. Nyman?
Can we table these two items for tonight and do some more searching and thinking, and maybe Mr. Sultani can get back to us with more information on what some other schools are doing? Are they staying to that strict standard, or have they found a way around some of it?
You can ask him right now. Mr. Sultanic, can you answer that question?
I do not believe that the additional time will give us any more options than we have already shared.
Mrs. Scott?
So one of the parents had brought up, and actually I can remember doing this many, many, many years ago, and having them sign, this was for something different, but having them sign off that their identification that they were handing me was not fake. And we had a lawyer prepare a statement that that person signed that this is, and it really did protect if we ever had, which we did have a couple issues. So can that be done? Not that we're asking for identification, but can they be vetted that way at the door with just a little thing saying, I attest that I'm a...
Again, I'm going to go to the so what.
I know, but
I'm just going to say so what.
okay, I just truly think they should be able to sign up, because, you know, we have busy lives. Sometimes we just...
I'm not disputing it. I'm just
I
trying
know.
to put the two options on the table for this.
Has it been a problem here with a lot of strangers walking in? Or?
Before a federal judge in Pennsburg decided to put this down our throat, no, it hasn't been a problem. But now that it's risen up to a mandate, more or less, we have to respond to it one way or another. Either respond to it by having a process to vet,
right,
or we respond to it by letting anybody that wants to come in here talk. That's your two options. I'm just trying to give the options as I see them.
All right.
I'd say that we stay with everything the way it is right now, not with the changes. Get rid of the language that can't be in there, and after the first issue, then you go to the extreme. That would be my motion.
Mrs. Deeroff?
Was that a motion?
No, it's just
Oh, okay. I guess what I'm saying is, if the solicitor is the one that recommended this, what are we paying him for if he wanted to sit here and argue all night whether it's a good idea or not? So I'd like to call for the vote.
So, Mrs. Deeroff, just so I get this straight, what you're saying is, if we're voting to either go with the solicitor's recommendation or against the recommendations of solicitor, Mr. Sultanic, can you reply to that, please?
We make recommendations on addressing issues for school districts. And on this kind of issue, I am very mindful of the differing viewpoints on the matter. I think if I were a school board member, I would be concerned, particularly in today's world, about getting or running the risk of non-resident speech. But the issue is, as a board, you need to weigh whether or not you believe that the risk of non-resident speech outweighs the ease administratively of people coming to talk at a school board meeting. And I think you've heard both sides of the issue. This is not necessarily an issue where there's only one legal way to address the issue. We have given the district a legal methodology to address resident participation. And I will not be personally impacted or offended in any respect if the board takes a different direction on that issue. This is, you're the policymaker. My firm is not. You get elected to make these decisions. I do not.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the move on at this point is, are we going to vote to go back to, or actually, does it even vote, since we're not to a voting point yet?
I believe that policy 006 should be voted on after 903, because 903 is referenced in 006, but 006 is definitely needs to be updated to reflect the new sunshine laws. So, and obviously to reflect whether or not you're going to announce name, address, etc. So
yeah, we can't do that. That's,
right.
That's an obvious one. So is the appropriate action to table it for right now, to move it back and not move it forward for further discussion, or?
my understanding is that 903, if the, perhaps you take a vote and then give me direction afterwards, but my understanding of both of these policies is that the reference that has the most concern by the board members that we are hearing is with regard to the 4 hours in advance. If that should be removed, then both policies would seem like they would be appropriate. Am I understanding that or hearing that correctly?
Do I need to take a formal vote to do that, or take a motion for a vote? Can we even do that? Because it's not on the agenda to vote on this tonight.
You may table them and we can move them forward, but I still need direction as to whether, what we want to be presented for the first reading.
Yeah.
There's no motion on the table. No motion. I can read. And you also have to approve the first reading, and that's what I was trying to have done.
So
we could approve the first reading, but you could also be telling me,
right,
giving me direction with regards to the changes in order for it to.
You can approve, as Mary Beth indicated, the board can approve the policy as presented with a recommendation to modify it with the change as indicated, both policies as indicated. And they'll do it, and by the time you get to vote on it for second reading, it will hopefully reflect where a majority of the board wants to be.
well, right now, where do I have any documentation that the majority of the board wants to not move forward? I've a bunch of different opinions and comments, but no direction.
You could ask right now for consensus, tell people to raise their hand for those people who would support the modification as summarized by your superintendent. It'd be that simple.
That would be the one that's presented tonight as unamended, correct?
No, that could be either the amended version. How about doing it this way? The amended version as stated by the superintendent, or the presented version by the superintendent. So if you could ask, who would support the amended version?
Yeah, I'll start the presented version. That's the one that has the 4-hour
Yeah.
up front. So let me go with that. I can do that with a show of hands. Okay, show of hands of who wants the presented version that was given tonight.
I'll tell you what, I'm totally confused.
Roger, what's your question?
Totally confused. Are we voting on the green part of this or the red part of this?
It would be the, all of it, including the green, and the red would be excluded.
The red will be excluded.
Yes, green is good. Red is retract.
Hold on a second. This is too confusing. I'd like to table this for tonight. There's too much confusion. There's still a lot of dialogue going on. I don't see moving this forward until we actually have some more conversation. Okay, do I have a motion? I have a motion. I have a second. I'd like to table this.
Next, I'm going to be looking for approval from the Board of School Directors to approve the bond refinancing parameters.
Was there a vote on the motion to table?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. It was head nods agreement. You're correct. That's not good enough. We need to have a vote. Sorry, Jeff.
So we'll be voting on the motion, motion to table.
What's that, Jeff? Mr. Sultanic, what was that? I missed that.
It does not need to be roll call. It could be all those in favor, say aye.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Sultanic.
Okay, next, the Board of School Directors to approve the bond refinancing parameters resolution as presented.
We have a motion?
I'm Jeff's.
Nyman's motion, Watt a second. Okay, take a vote.
Any questions?
No questions. Any questions on that?
Since Mr. Remick is here, thank you for being here with us tonight. This is not something that is usual of Boyertown, correct? To do this type?
Well, am I on now? Okay. It is not unusual for Boyertown to refinance. Correct. This is we have done direct placements before. That was for the new money that we discussed. I forget when we did a loan for some new money, but this would be using another, a structure, another way to achieve a refinancing where we're reducing your payments. They would be fixed rate, whether you issue bonds or whether you do a direct placement. It's whether the source of funding is the capital markets or it's from a bank. There's not any difference in risk. You loan the money and then we're just getting a source of funding that could be different. We haven't given up the idea of a bond issue, but this is another way of getting funds to do the refinancing at the best rate we possibly can. It gives you some additional options.
So we're just setting up the procedure. We're not
Correct.
telling you to go anywhere, do anything. We're just giving you authorization to tell us that you can do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding was that we were getting everything in place to be able to refinance should the opportunity come forward. And we're not giving any okay to do any refinancing at this time.
Right.
You have to come back to us for that. I think that's where the confusion is with some of the people.
Right.
Is we're not giving you the okay to refinance. We're giving you okay to get ahead of the 30-day paperwork chain that you have to get in, so that if something does pop up, it probably won't last long, and we probably need to jump at it pretty quick.
And we certainly wouldn't do anything without getting in touch with the administration. Obviously, we wouldn't do that. This is just, like you said, getting set up and ready to go. And you haven't given us the right to just go do anything. We certainly would be in touch.
Yeah, that is my understanding. Thank
Right.
you. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Up the Grove.
Wasn't there a date involved in that where we could move on?
I'm sorry?
Was there a date? Didn't you say there was a date that we had to do this by?
No, this is just setting up the resolution to be able to, it's open-ended and gets filed with the state. I don't think there's a deadline for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess now to a vote.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And lastly, I am looking for the Board of School Directors to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
Hogan motions.
Hogan motions, Mr. Updegrove second. Discussion, comments? Ms. Deeroff?
I have one, I forgot to call to ask to have one item pulled, so I'm gonna have to vote no on the whole issue here, because I don't like reading on the athletic page that we hired somebody before they were approved. Number one. Number two, we did that before, not with athletic, but with a teacher, and that teacher never got hired then. In fact, they got taken out of the school as they were preparing to do their, I think they have to go in 3 days ahead of time or something, and they actually got removed. So I don't like to see people go ahead on their own and do stuff like that. And I will not vote on something like that. It seems to me to be made up ahead of time. I like to see the procedure work and followed. So I will not be voting on that one particular thing, which unfortunately makes me vote no on the whole personnel agenda.
Mr. Zawada?
I agree. Basically, the procedures were not followed on this particular hiring. And I don't know if we can pull it now or we just have to vote no against the whole personnel.
So I'm to clear the rumor or the misunderstanding is that Mr. Palladino has worked directly with our Human Resources Office, and our Human Resources Office provided the allowance to say this will be the coach coming up and that they can operate and function, you know, as the person because they are an assistant coach. So I just want everyone to understand that our athletics department is not operating without working directly with our Human Resources Office. So I understand, you know, where you may be and that we are going to be correcting that. We've had a conversation and we won't be, you know, promoting so that kids, you know, just more or less have to wait until we, you know, make the decision to put the athletics on. But that was not done in isolation of our Human Resources Office. All of the postings, everything goes through Human Resources Office. They make the determination of how long things are out there to be posted. We are going to be working a little bit differently to generate more, try to get more people interested in our positions, getting it out there, you know, and try to solicit, you know, people to come out and fill our coaching positions, which right now there are 10 of them. So I just wanted to, you know, make sure that everybody understands that, you know, athletics is not ever working in isolation of our HR office. I don't know if you had anything else to add, Mrs. Frederickson. I just saw that you were nodding in agreement. Thank you.
That may well be, but when it happened to an educational person, a teacher, they got removed. Sorry, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Mr. Hemingway?
Yes. With a no vote for the entire personnel listing here, what ramifications would that have for those that are also on that list?
I don't think,
I mean, they would just be added to another.
You would still need the majority of the board to pass the motion.
I understand that, but say if it didn't pass, what would be the what happens to the other people on that list?
And it wouldn't be approved, then they would not be approved.
So can we pull it then? That one person?
We can certainly move over and say that as presented without you just have to tell me which one that you want pulled. So if you want me to remove co-curricular athletics as, you know, from the list, and then we'll vote on that one separately, that's what we could do.
Okay, that'll be great if you could do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So
Would I need a majority of the board to ask for that before we do that? Would I need a majority of the board to request that?
that's up to you, Mr.
Yeah, I
President.
mean, it's just, I just don't think I can just pull that here at the meeting.
Mr. Sultani, can we make an
Unless I
amendment
apply-
to the personnel agenda and move one from the list as presented?
Board should take a motion to pull that one item from the list that's presented and vote. And you could do it all in one vote. You could do a motion to pull that one item out and approve the balance of that items in one vote.
Okay. So we're going to have a motion to approve the personnel agenda
With the exception of.
with the exception of co-curricular athletics position and yeah, the remaining there.
Yes.
I'm a bit confused about what's happening here. So we're trying to pull anybody who is listed as a coach from here?
There's one listing under co-curricular.
Okay.
So that is the.
And can we just see if there's like enough interest? Can we just see if we have
That's
enough
what
interest to pass it as it is? No, wait, then I'm confused. I apologize. Are we trying to pull that person and then vote on it, or are we just voting on how it is?
Well, right now, that's not an appropriate question. Right now, the only question is we're taking one item out. Once we get back to that other item, you can address that. What we're just voting on is everything else on the agenda, and then that will be brought up for a separate vote, and at that time, you can pose your question.
On this one,
On the coaches,
it's one coach, correct?
One.
yes.
It's one co-curricular position.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess my question is that we would vote on all but the one person, and then immediately if I can get a motion to follow through on that.
We need to amend the first and second that's on there.
Yeah. With the amendment, correct? This would be for the this would be for the personnel agenda with the co-curricular removed. So I'm looking for a motion to go forward on that, on the amended personnel list.
So why don't news?
Oh, okay, so we did have that already. Okay, Mrs. Hogan, Mr. Updegrove, were you rescinding your motion?
I am not.
I am.
You are?
I am not.
So who was the original motion? Who was the second? So the original motion is not withdrawn, but there is no second?
Or does anyone want to second it, right?
Yeah. So there is no second right now. And that would be on the original entire list as is with no amendments, correct? Want to make sure everybody understands that. So now,
Well, I say a motion fails, so then we're looking for a motion to accept the personnel with the
amended motion.
The amended motion with the removal of one.
Is there a motion for that?
I'm looking for a motion for that right now.
You're off second.
Discussion on that, or I think we've already had a lot. Okay, roll call vote on that.
Okay, we'll be voting on approving the personnel agenda item with the omission of the co-curricular athletic appointment. Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello,
Yes.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Diroff,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
Okay, so then the next motion would be for the Board of School Directors to approve the co-curriculars as presented.
Hogan motions.
Looking for a second? This is on the co-curricular coach. We're going to vote on whether we're going to approve the co-curricular coach or not. I have a first. I need a second.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
No.
Mr. Panarello,
No.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
No.
Mrs. Scott,
No.
Ms. Deeroff,
No.
Mr. Hemingway,
No.
Mr. Brophy.
No.
Motion fails.
Yes, Ms. Hogan.
Does the failure of this motion have any impact on this sport, like this sport?
Right now, they do not have a coach.
Right, but are they, like, it's a winter sport, right? So are they like practicing or working out?
It is a winter sport. However, we don't want to let this lie too long because it will affect them when it comes time to play. And when they get to the winter, it'll affect them greatly. So we would be very unfair to the girls' basketball team if we don't move on this and get to some sort of resolution.
Okay, thank you.
That completes my report, Mr. Brophy. That completes my report.
Okay, now move to old business. Any old business? No old business? That would move us to public comment period number 2. Do I have signups for public period number 2? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got these two and that one. Good, thanks. Okay. So we have people signed up for the public number 2. So on behalf of the school board directors, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. We welcome your attendance and input from stakeholders to assist in making recommendations and decisions related to the Boyertown Area School District. The procedure and rules for public participation are detailed in BSAD Board Policy 006. This document is available at the meeting and on the PSD website. Participants properly registered on the sign-up sheet will be recognized by the presiding officer. I have the sheet. Public comment period number 2 is for those persons wishing to discuss an item not appearing on the evening's agenda. Participants must preface their comments by the announcement of their name, group affiliation for that is appropriate. All statements, inquiries, and comments shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually, administrative team members individually, school employees, or members of the public individually. Note that we value and will not compromise the privacy of our students or staff. Please see us outside the realm of a public meeting if you have a concern about an individual staff member or student. If public comment includes a question, Mrs. Thorshaw or a member of her staff will contact you to confirm your question and provide you with information. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and comment periods are limited to 30 minutes. Finally, note that we do record our board and committee meetings and we post them on YouTube with a link to our website. We request if you do wish to take pictures or record the meeting yourself, do it in a non-disruptive and discreet manner and use those.
3 minutes and I'll talk as fast as possible. I'll note that you guys spent 25 minutes banging around the walls about the proper way to register people for public comment, but you're going to pass $130, $140 million budget with a paucity of data and almost no questions asked. Well, fortunately, I'm here to ask some of those questions. You all have in your inboxes now an email I sent you a short while ago about some work that I did with our financial and budget historical documents. I want to address two claims that were made at the April 24th meeting about this new term that's being bandied about, and that's the adjusting tax collections for collectability. There were two comments made by the CFO, two claims made. The first claim was that historically, higher taxation increases led to decreased revenues and also decreased collections. I studied 11 years of historical data from the finance and budget reports that are available on the BASD website. From 1.5% to 5.4%, there's absolutely no impact on collectivity. Collectivity has remained flat and actually reasonably good for those 11 years. So that claim is false, unless there's some data that I don't have access to. The second claim was that the CFO could actually use that data to project expected revenues at various tax rates from 0%, where she said we'd have a 98% tax collectivity, all the way up to 4.2%. And she tried to claim that any tax raises above 3% would lead to actual decrease in overall revenues. I took that data and I did some back calculations to figure out what collectivity rate she was assuming, since she didn't mention those in her report. Turns out that at the 3% rate, if you use her numbers and you trust her numbers, it comes out to a 99.2% collectivity rate. So I fail to understand how at 0%, we're only collecting at 98%, but if we ramp up to a 3% increase, all of a sudden we're being able to collect at 99.2%. I feel like that was made to sort of maximize the amount of revenues that you could expect at 3% to make the 3.5 and 4.2% look bad. I don't care what tax rate you want to tax at. I don't care what level of funding you want. I want you to make that decision based on accurate information and transparent information. I was told by Ms. Torsha that I had to file a right to know request to find the CFO's reasoning. That's absolutely unacceptable. I expect that all of these analyses be made publicly available so that we can examine them. I'm happy to admit that I might be wrong, but I want to have it done publicly. This is too important a decision. It impacts all our students. Remember, this is for our students. Please make this transparent, and I find this to be a board failing.
Time is up.
If they don't demand this be made transparent.
I believe next is Mr. Savage.
Fiscal responsibility is essential to creating a better, stronger, more prosperous school district for the next generation. The choices you make now or fail to make will determine what kind of education our children and our grandchildren inherit 20 and 40 years from now, and ultimately what community we live in. So let's talk about your vote to pass the preliminary budget 2 weeks ago at the committee of the whole meeting. Based on my 10-year experience on this board, I have been flabbergasted at the limited information you are given regarding the budget and the lack of questions you are asking, especially after listening to you tonight go round and round about issues that have relatively little consequence in comparison to the budget. You are proposing to use a lot of fund balance. How do you know that you aren't moving our district toward insolvency? Among the missing information that you need to make fiscally sound decisions is the impact of the proposed budget beyond the upcoming school year. When I was on the board, we demanded and received 5-year projections based on various scenarios and assumptions. We varied tax rates, personnel costs when we were coming up on contract renewals as you are, and other big unknowns such as inflation rates for now. I would think you would be concerned. At least 4 of you will be passing at least 3 more budgets in your current tenure. Why have you not demanded and received this information? Another analysis that was done during my tenure on the board was a retrospective analysis of tax rates that showed that there is wisdom in the adjusted Act 1 index recommendations from the state. Looking back 10 years, the analysis showed that if we had raised taxes to the adjusted Act 1 index every year, it would have resulted in lower tax rates and higher fund balances than the continuing up and down practice of keeping taxes and increases lower until you find yourself in an emergency where you need to raise them more. It sounds improbable, I know, but it is due to compounding. Demand that analysis. In addition, I have heard 2 board members ask to see the data that Mrs. Danicola used to claim a cause-effect relationship between tax rates.
Mrs. Usavage, you know not to use names, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. That your CFO used to claim cause-effect relationship between tax rate and tax collection rate. Based on comments at the last meeting, I don't think
30
they
seconds,
received
please.
it. In theory, administration should be giving the board unbiased information about the current and future state of school finances. Then the board should use that information to make fiscally sound decisions. Having been on the board, I can guess that what is really happening is this. The board leadership tells administration what tax increase to recommend, then directs administration to make up the story to support that tax increase. Unthinkable. Your community expects you to do your due diligence to make sound decisions and to be transparent about how you are spending our money. Your actions are demonstrating that you're fiscally irresponsible, fiscally incompetent, and fiscally non-transparent, and that you don't really care. Thank you for your opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Usavage.
Grab that mic before you turn on it.
Yeah.
Ms. Selix.
Nicole Zelks. Good evening again, everyone. I also want to speak on the budget. Unlike the 2 previous speakers, I don't have analysis or data. Just going to tell you how I see it. We're bleeding money, and our school district's in trouble. And I'm seriously concerned about underfunding our school district. An almost $3 million deficit is devastating. I don't know what the answer is, but I haven't seen any answers put forth other than hope that the state gives us more money and hope that we get more kids back. Those were the same things that were mentioned last year, but yet we're in a worse position this year than we were last year. I also have some concerns because when the budget was presented this year, things just didn't seem quite right to me. So I went back to look at the budget from last year. I see a lot of inconsistencies in the way it's done, and I find that concerning. I don't understand why we present things one way last year, and this year we're presenting it differently, including with the fund balance. Last year, it was presented with what I would assume be the fund balance. Sorry, I forgot the word I was looking for. The fund balance, unassigned fund. I'm sorry, it was presented with assigned funds, and this year we're presenting it with unassigned fund balances. Why are we doing that differently? I also have concerns about the adjusted collectability because clearly last year we didn't present it with that rate of adjusted collectability because over 3%, our collecting rates were higher than they are being presented now. So that obviously wasn't done, and I don't recall hearing it or seeing it anywhere within the budget, that term. So I am really concerned with the way we're doing things. I'm concerned the direction we're headed. I'm concerned because, like it's been said in this boardroom, we really don't have much left to cut. If we keep on going in this direction, we're losing sports, we're losing music, we're losing kindergarten, and we're losing transportation. And those things, I was a parent here 10 years ago. I was one of the parents that spoke
30 seconds.
When sports in the junior high were on the cutting board, and when the arts and music were on the cutting board. We know what this community will come out for. I don't want to see that happen again. So I ask that we figure out a way to do this without underfunding the budget and providing our students with what they deserve. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move to board comments. I'm going to go around the room. Mrs. Nyman? Mr. Updegrove?
I have just quick comments. Congratulations to Sarah and to the class of 2022. So exciting. Just a really exciting time. Thank you to Coach Mcglinchey for his 47 years of service. What an amazing achievement. Thank you to Giant for their continued support of the district. It's super appreciated. And then I just wanted to take a moment and just recognize the school shooting that happened in Texas today. 18 elementary age students are dead, and as well as 3 adults. So I find that incredibly troubling, and I really just wanted to take a moment and reflect on that and ask for thoughts for their families and all that are involved. And that's all. Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Lisa. I hadn't heard about that, so thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's always good to hear from a coach who's done it for 47 years, and I think that that's awesome. And I think he left, but I just commend the man. I liked what he said about excellence is not an accident, and I think we can all keep that in mind as we are on the board, but also we will struggle with some things as well. I thank the parents for speaking tonight, and that's it.
Mrs. Deroff?
Nope, I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Mr. Zawada?
Being this is the last board meeting before graduation, I want to congratulate all our 2022 graduates. I also want to congratulate the teachers, getting them all through this tough year, and thank the board for helping them get through it. And more than anything right now, with what's happening in our country, I ask for prayers for Texas tonight.
Mr. Penrose?
Just want to congratulate Coach on his retirement. The outgoing class, congratulations. And to Sarah, good luck at Penn State.
Mr. Hemingway?
No comment.
I have no comment.
Mr. Brophy, I have a comment. I would like to go on the record and say that the accusation that was made towards this administration in that we develop a budget based upon a preconceived number that we are coming forward with is as far from the truth as possible. We are a fiscally responsible administration, and we understand the Boyertown area community, as well as people who have resided here and people who have been on our board, but we also understand the constraints which we are operating under. And for anyone to believe that we are being told what amount of revenue we need in order to be able to meet the needs of all of our community members is very disheartening at the least, because I believe that if there was a need to go further, we would have presented something along those lines. We have people that are requesting a reduced amount of a tax increase, as well as people who are looking for us to go to the index. But we are looking at our numbers of the ability to continue to collect at the same level that we have been, as well as, you know, what we do have available to use. So I just would like to go on the record and let it be noted that I take great offense to being saying that I've been coerced and told by this board leadership as to how we are to present a budget, when I have responsibility to all people within this community. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Nunn?
Sorry, I just wanted to reach out to Mrs. Torsha, and we had last Friday a very nice event that was held by the Boyertown Rod and Gun Club for our special needs students, and I think you said about 20 of them attended, and from what I'm hearing from Mrs. Torsha, they had a great time. So thank you to the Boyertown Rod and
I
Gun.
did want to acknowledge and thank you for saying that to the Boyertown Rod and Gun Club for the wonderful opportunity that they did bestow upon our students in our life skills program. Many fish were caught all around. All the young women and gentlemen had a wonderful time, and I'm not sure who had more fun, the students or the volunteers. So thank you for helping to set that opportunity up. That's all, Mr. Brophy.
It's one thing for the board members to come in here, criticize board members and call them names and use inflammatory speech and basically just disparage us. I understand that. We were elected, we're officials, and we are required to listen to you. And I will. However, the CFO is not an elected official. She is an employee. Tonight I heard that the CFO broadly disparaged. In fact, in my mind, it was, I believe she was almost called a liar. And I do take great offense to that. And I think that's way over the line. So if that's how you're going to, I've listened to this for 3 years and I watched several years of the same thing. And the one thing I can say for past board members, the reason you don't understand fiscal responsibility is you never used it. And now you're starting to see it, and you don't know how to answer to it. You actually have a CFO that knows her job, and you can't stand it. So that's I wasn't going to make any remarks tonight, but you know what? You guys deserve a reply. So you got it. So now you know where I stand as far as what I listen to every night. You can go to Facebook and you can blast it all over. I don't care.
What it looks like we're not here when we don't get questions answered. We ask for simple information, we don't get responses.
Motion to adjourn. Is that-
Second.
Meeting adjourned.